So I am excited to share with you how I use the whole sign house system and the Placidus house system together. Now, when I discovered this, it was a game changer the way I started to interpret charts. Now, I've not quite heard another astrologer interpret it or share it the way I'm going to. I'm sure there's many that probably have a similar interpretation to mine, but I'm going to be showing you how I use it, how I came up with the idea, and also how we can look at intercepted houses to give us a little bit more information as well. So let's have some fun with it. Have a look at your chart through Placidus and whole sign and see what you discover. So let's dive in. Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back if you're returning, and a warm welcome if you're new here. My name is Lisa. Now, I usually like to just dive in and get straight to business, but just before I do have an announcement I would like to make. Now, there are two reasons why I am here doing these videos. One is for self-healing, which if you've watched my Chiron video, you will know all about that. And if you haven't watched it and you want to know more about it, check it out. And the second one is I'm here to serve you and to help bring wisdom and enlightenment and knowledge to those who seek it. If there is a particular topic that you would like me to explore, whether it's astrology based, therapy based, combining both, which is what I normally do, whatever it may be, I'm pretty down with anything. Let me know, leave it in the comment box, or alternatively, you can find my email in the description box. Let me know what you would like to see, and I will do my best to bring the videos forward for you. So now let's jump in. So whole sign and Placidus. Now, for a lot of people that are starting their astrology studies, they will usually access the free software that we have on astro.com, where we can generate a chart for free. However, the default system is Placidus. And when you are first learning astrology, you're not normally aware of house systems. So like myself, I generated my chart using Placidus. And as I started learning about all my planets, I looked at my chart and thought, wow, this really resonates with me. It's like I'm looking at myself, like I can really feel into it. So I used Placidus, and as time went on, I started to watch videos. I started to hear other astrologers all say that they use whole sign. Now, of course, many do use Placidus and many other house systems, because there are many. But I'm not talking about those. I'm just talking about these two. And when I realized that a lot of astrologers that I was watching at the time and dabbling in some courses were all using whole sign, I felt quite frustrated. Right? So I'd like to know if any of you felt this, where it's almost like, but it doesn't make sense to me. Like, I really resonate with Placidus. And so I wanted to stay open-minded, because a lot of astrologers had said that they find that making predictions was more accurate using whole sign. I do believe that you need to trial and error and, see what works for you and what resonates for you. But I wanted to stay open-minded and see what this was all about. So I did start using whole sign and trying to look at my sign through the whole sign. And at first I was a bit like, yeah, I don't know, I feel the Placidus more, right? But as I started using it more and more and became more familiar with my chart as well and how to read energy, I started to really resonate with the whole sign. So then I started to use the whole sign, also making predictions and using other predictive methods became easier using whole sign. And so that was now my default. But then it kept coming back to me how much I deeply resonated with Placidus to begin with. So I had to understand it, and I had to try and have a look at why is it that I resonated so much with Placidus and now so much with whole sign, even though my planets have all shifted. So I took some time to look into it, and I thoroughly studied my chart through Placidus and through whole sign and other people's charts that I knew very, very well. And I started to see a pattern. And what I realized was when I was looking at Placidus, and the reason it resonated with me on such a deep level when I first started using it, was because the Placidus was giving me my subjective view of how I was experiencing it, how I was internalizing it, how I was feeling my emotions through the experiences that I was having. And when I was looking at the whole sign, I was seeing my life almost more objectively. So where it was really happening, how it was really happening, and starting to see that that was now becoming my more objective view, my objective stance of my life. So I found this really fascinating. And when I first clicked this together, I started to look at other people's charts and to see if it's resonated as well with them. And it did. So what is so fascinating with this is it gives you a different edge, right? Because what Placidus does is teach you a lot about how you're experiencing it, how you process information, how you process emotions, and how you're experiencing it through your subjective lens. And with whole sign can almost be like our blind spot. So how is it actually playing out? Where is this happening, and how have I maybe not seen it? So another thing to keep in mind is also the consciousness of the person that you are reading a chart for, or even for yourself, right? So if we don't have much emotional awareness and self-awareness, then the whole sign could almost be like our blind spot, right? Where we're not quite seeing something as it is. It's more how we're interpreting it. So that's something just to hold in mind. So if like I know, if I want to really see how someone is going to feel about something, a certain experience, how they're going to process it, I can look at the Placidus and think, okay, so this is probably the lens that they most likely will look at it through or resonate with. So it doesn't mean the Placidus is wrong because it's subjective, because that's still your truth. But it just means you can get a bit of an extra insight and layer when it comes to the whole sign, to put it all together. I hope that makes sense. So just as an example, let's say you have Mars in the 8th house whole sign, but it falls into your 7th house in Placidus. Then the way you may feel into it and what resonates is that maybe you've had one-on-one partnerships, or there's a particular committed partnership you've had where it can be quite fiery. Maybe it's you've attracted someone who can be quite aggressive, or someone who's quick-tempered, or someone who's very driven and motivated. But let's take, for instance, you're now seeing someone who is being very aggressive, so the more lower vibration of it, right? So let's say that's been your experience. You've had an experience with someone who has been quite fiery and aggressive with you. So now when we look at it through a subjective and objective lens, maybe you've been with someone where now you've separated, and the aggression has begun, and this person has become very, very difficult to deal with. So now you're looking at the person as being someone who has been, very fiery, very aggressive, very, wants to dominate the situation. When really what's happened is that that's the side of them you have seen once you have separated, and now potentially going through a divorce and separating the assets and the finances. And now it's come to blows and it's turned very aggressive. So then you're a bit like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So I experience it as in a one-on-one partnership, but actually all the aggression is being aggravated through the 8th house. And so you can start to see how you can combine them both. I'm going to give you an example through my own chart. So I'm going to show you Placidus and whole sign, and I'm zooming in to the part of the chart that I'm talking about, which is the 1st, 2nd, 3rd house. So here you will see that I am a Pisces rising, and in Placidus, where you will see I've marked yellow, I have a large 1st house. Now if you look at my Placidus chart, and in Placidus we know that it creates unequal house sizes, and my 1st house is rather large, so it consists of 3 signs: Pisces, Aries and Taurus. Now when there's more than one sign in one house, it means that this house expresses all of those energies, but the sign where the cusp falls is always the primary, most dominant sign. So that will have the biggest influence, and the other ones would be secondary. Okay, so when you look at now my 1st house, which now consists of the 3 signs, Pisces, Aries and Taurus, you can see that Aries is a sign that is intercepted. And in a way, this is a bit like that sign has been swallowed up because there's no cusp on that sign. So the way we can look at this is a sign that may be difficult to express, something that may be an energy that needs to be more understood and integrated. So now, whenever you have an intercepted house, it will always mean that the house sign opposite will also be intercepted. So where Aries is an intercepted sign in my 1st house, the opposite sign is Libra, which will be in my 7th house, and that will also be intercepted. So I also have a large 7th house, which is Virgo, Libra and Scorpio. So it mirrors back what you're seeing. So then what you do is you always look at the axis. It's a lot easier to look at it from, it's almost like you're zooming out and you're looking at it from the axis. So I'm looking at the Aries energy and the Libra energy and the houses that they're in, the 1st and the 7th. And here, what I can share with you is that throughout my life, so before I sort of started on my healing journey, I could fall quite strongly towards the Aries energy of being overly independent and feeling like, you know, I can do everything myself. And I could also fall over quite strongly to that Libran energy, where it was more codependency and people pleasing and wanting to make everyone happy, even at the detriment of losing myself. So that's an energy that I have had to work on. And this is then showing up in partnership. So this is me, my 1st house, physicality, who I am, and my 7th house of the other. So with the whole sign, this is about the 2nd and the 8th house, which is all about power struggles, power plays, and fears and control and manipulation and your security, your value, your self-worth. So really all of that is what's really been playing out. It just happens that subjectively it feels like it's always with another, which it is, but the root of it is actually coming from fear of loss, fear of power struggles, being overpowered, abuse of power, all those things, and rooting it back to my security, my safety, my self-value and self-worth. So you can start to see how you can now understand it a little bit more fully in why these things manifest in the way that you are experiencing them. So now another way we can look at this 1st house is about my identity. and how that affects my identity or the way I feel about it, having this intercepted house, right? So this shows that my identity carries the energy of 3 different signs: Pisces, Aries, and Taurus. Now, when I was younger, I was very, I guess, Piscean, you know, that very Piscean energy of, I was very girly. I used to love dressing up. I used to love wearing pink, bows in my hair. You know, I was very dreamy, very, you know, used to dance around everywhere, and just yeah, very girly. So that was how I appeared when I was younger. But I also had older brothers who I used to watch train and do all these very more masculine things. And I wanted to join in. I used to go out and climb trees and climb walls and do all these really physical things and test my strength all the time. And I was doing this from about 6 years old. So I was very young when I started this, and I enjoyed it because I was always very active. I'm naturally a very active person anyway, so I enjoyed it, and I was doing this all the time. So by the time I got to the age of about 9, 10, and so at that time when I was at school and people started to notice that I had bigger muscles than the boys, but it was like a shocking element that people just didn't match it with the way I presented myself. Yeah, so that's how it's been expressed in my first house and as an intercepted sign. But it for me personally, it was quite confusing because I felt I had to fit into a box. You know, there was always this feeling of who am I? Until I realized, and it took me a while to get there, that, you know, I have all these aspects to me, and that is who I am. You know, I don't have to just be one particular way or have one particular look or, you know, have just one aspect to me. There's many sides of me, and it was learning to embrace those sides. So the fact that I am also a Pisces rising made that even more difficult for me, and a Pisces sun made that even more difficult for me. And so it took a while for me to see that about myself. But, you know, when I look at the whole sign, which is a Pisces rising, that's already going to give that energy of who is this person. So yeah, so I hope this has helped, but it's a really interesting way to look at your chart. But see if it resonates with you, and remember, always do what does resonate with you and what feels right as well. So with that, go well everyone, wishing you lots of love. Bye.